The American Civil War, a tumultuous and transformative conflict, began in earnest in 1861. As the nation fractured, the opening battle set the stage for a brutal and protracted war that would shape the future of the United States. This program delves into the pivotal clashes of 1861, where the first sparks of conflict ignited a blaze that would threaten to destroy a nation. Our story begins at Fort Sumter, a federal outpost in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces, eager to assert their newfound independence, opened fire on the fort. The bombardment, lasting 34 hours, resulted in the surrender of Union forces and marked the official start of the Civil War. Fort Sumter's fall galvanized the North, with President Abraham Lincoln calling for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion, thus igniting the fervor for war. The battle lines were drawn, and the next major clash occurred at Bull Run, near Manassas, Virginia. On July 21, 1861, Union and Confederate armies met in what would become the first major land battle of the Civil War. Known also as the First Battle of Manassas, this encounter shattered any illusions of a short and decisive conflict. The Union forces, under the command of Brigadier General Irvin McDowell, were initially successful, but were ultimately routed by a fierce Confederate counterattack led by Generals Joseph E. Johnston and P.G.T. Beauregard. The chaotic retreat of Union troops and civilians back to Washington, D.C., often referred to as the Great Skedaddle, underscored the grim reality that the war would be neither quick nor easy. As summer turned to fall, another significant engagement unfolded along the banks of the Potomac River. The Battle of Ball's Bluff, fought on October 21, 1861, was a smaller yet equally consequential confrontation. Union forces, led by Colonel Edward Baker, a close friend of President Lincoln, attempted a surprise attack on a Confederate position. The assault quickly turned disastrous, with Union troops suffering heavy casualties and many drowning while trying to escape across the river. The defeat at Ball's Bluff led to the establishment of the Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War, reflecting growing Northern frustration and the demand for accountability. These early battles of 1861, Fort Sumter, Bull Run, and Ball's Bluff, and several other minor engagements were harbingers of the immense struggle ahead. They illustrated the ferocity and complexity of a war that would test the nation's resolve and redefine its future. We'll explore these critical moments in depth, delving into the strategies, leadership, and bravery that marked the dawn of the American Civil War. In the early hours of April 12, 1861, the tranquil waters of Charleston Harbor bore witness to the opening salvo of the American Civil War. The battle that ensued at Fort Sumter would ignite a conflict that would tear a nation apart. The seeds of conflict were sown in the contentious presidential election of 1860. Abraham Lincoln's victory signaled a turning point for the United States. His stance against the expansion of slavery alarmed the southern states, leading South Carolina to secede from the Union on December 20, 1860. Over the next few months, 6 more states followed suit, forming the Confederate States of America. In Charleston, South Carolina, a Union fort remained a symbol of federal authority amidst a burgeoning Confederacy. Fort Sumter, situated on an island in Charleston Harbor, became the focal point of mounting tensions. Commanded by Major Robert Anderson, a Union loyalist, Fort Sumter was manned by a small garrison of 85 soldiers. Isolated and running low on supplies, Anderson's men were under constant pressure. Meanwhile, Confederate forces led by Brigadier General P.G.T. Beauregard encircled the fort, demanding its surrender. President Lincoln, determined to maintain federal property, ordered a relief expedition to resupply the fort. The Confederacy, viewing any attempt to reinforce the garrison as an act of aggression, prepared for a showdown. On April 10, 1861, an expedition to resupply Fort Sumter sailed from New York Harbor. On the same day, after considerable debate within Davis's cabinet, the Confederate president advised Beauregard to fire on any attempt to reprovision the fort. The next day, April 11th, emissaries from Beauregard delivered a message to Anderson. demanding the surrender of Fort Sumter. Anderson refused. Just after midnight on April 12th, Beauregard dispatched another negotiating party to the fort. This time, Anderson agreed to evacuate the facility by April 15th if his garrison did not receive supplies before then. Unwilling to accept Anderson's proviso regarding supplies, Beauregard's envoys ended negotiations just after 3 a.m. A final warning was dispatched at 3:20 a.m. by General Beauregard's 2 aides-de-camp.
Sir, by authority of Brigadier General Beauregard, commanding the provisional forces of the Confederate States, we have the honor to notify you that he will open the fire of his batteries on Fort Sumter in 1 hour from this time. We have the honor to be, very respectfully, your obedient servants, James Chestnut, Jr. and Stephen D. Lee.
The Charleston Press reported what transpired 1 hour later. Upon the signal, at 25 minutes past 4 o'clock a.m., the circle of batteries with which the grim fortress of Fort Sumter is beleaguered opened fire. The outline of this great volcanic crater was illuminated with a line of twinkling lights. The clustering shells illuminated the sky above it. The balls clattered thick as hail upon its sides. Our citizens, aroused to a forgetfulness of their fatigue through many weary hours, rushed again to the points of observation. And so, at the break of day, amidst the bursting of bombs and the roaring of ordnance, and before thousands of spectators, whose homes and liberties and lives were at stake, was enacted this first great scene in the opening drama of this most momentous military history: the Charleston Press. For 34 hours, a relentless bombardment rained down on the fort, with over 3,000 shells fired. Inside the fort, Major Anderson's men bravely withstood the barrage, despite limited ammunition and no means of reinforcement. A battery commander, whose name would be later linked to the invention of baseball, recorded the desperate situation inside the fort.
By 11 a.m., the conflagration was terrible and disastrous. 1/5 of the fort was on fire, and the wind drove the smoke in dense masses into the angle where we had all taken refuge. It seemed impossible to escape suffocation. Some lay down close to the ground with handkerchiefs over their mouths, and others posted themselves near the embrasures, where the smoke was somewhat lessened by the draft of air. Everyone suffered severely. I crawled out of one of these openings and sat on the outer edge, but Ripley made it lively for me there with his case shot, which spattered all around. Had not a slight change of wind taken place, the result might have been fatal to most of us. Captain Abner Doubleday, commanding Battery E, 1st United States Artillery.
On April 13th, with the fort ablaze and supplies nearly exhausted, Anderson made the difficult decision to surrender. Ironically, the only fatalities at Fort Sumter occurred just after the battle ended. During the surrender ceremony, a pile of cartridges ignited, killing 1 soldier, fatally wounding another, and injuring 4. The fall of Fort Sumter marked the beginning of a brutal and protracted war. The Confederates' victory electrified the South, while in the North, Lincoln's call for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion was met with overwhelming support. The battle lines were drawn. Fort Sumter became a symbol of the conflict that would engulf the nation for 4 long years, resulting in over 600,000 casualties and leaving a legacy of division and reconstruction. The echoes of that first cannon shot in Charleston Harbor have resonated for generations. The Confederates held Fort Sumter throughout most of the war until Major General William T. Sherman captured Charleston in February 1865. On April 14, 1865, Anderson, now a brevet major general, returned to Fort Sumter to raise the stars and stripes over the stronghold he had evacuated earlier, 4 years to the day. Tragically, later that night, as if putting a final bloody exclamation point on the entire brutal conflict, John Wilkes Booth shot and killed President Lincoln at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Today, Fort Sumter stands as a testament to the resilience and sacrifice of a nation divided and ultimately reunited. It reminds us of the cost of conflict and the enduring pursuit of a more perfect union. First Manassas, better known as Bull Run, was the first major engagement between the main armies. The battle had a long-lasting impact on how the war was fought and revolutionized the care of battlefield casualties.
Samuel English Corporal Company D, 2nd Rhode Island Volunteers. Sunday the 21st. About 2 o'clock, the drums beat the assembly, and in 10 minutes we were on our march for Bull Run, having heard the enemy were waiting to receive us. Our troops then numbering 25 or 30,000, which were divided into 3 columns ours under Colonel Hunter, taking the right through a thick woods.
The Battle of Bull Run was a significant turning point in the American Civil War. It took place near a small creek called Bull Run, just 25 miles southwest of Washington, D.C. The Union Army, led by General Irvin McDowell, faced the Confederate Army, commanded by General Pierre G.T. Beauregard. Many anticipated a swift Union victory, but what unfolded was quite different. The Battle of Bull Run was the first major land battle of the American Civil War, and it showcased the unpreparedness of both sides. The commanders and troops were largely inexperienced, resulting in a chaotic and unpredictable engagement.
On our arrival into the open field, I saw I should judge 3,000 or 4,000 rebels retreating for a dense woods, firing as they retreated, while from another part of the woods, a perfect hailstorm of bullets, round shot and shell was poured upon us, tearing through our ranks and scattering death and confusion everywhere. But with a yell and a roar, we charged upon them, driving them again into the woods with fearful loss.
Both the Union and Confederate armies were still in the early stages of organizing and training their forces. Many soldiers had enlisted for only 90 days, expecting a quick resolution to the conflict. However, the Battle of Bull Run shattered these expectations. The Confederate Army was outnumbered at Bull Run, but they had a crucial advantage: their knowledge of the terrain. Confederate forces had spent several months fortifying the area, constructing earthworks and establishing strong defensive positions. This gave them a significant advantage in the battle. When the Union Army launched its assault on July 21st, they faced a well-prepared Confederate defense. The battle raged across the fields and woods surrounding Bull Run, with both sides enduring heavy casualties. One of the key factors that impacted the outcome of the battle was the arrival of Confederate reinforcements led by General Thomas "Stonewall" Jackson. His troops, inspired by their commander's bravery, held a crucial defensive position on Henry Hill.
As we neared the bridge, the rebels opened a very destructive fire upon us, mowing down our men like grass, and caused even greater confusion than before. Our artillery and baggage wagons became fouled with each other, completely blocking the bridge, while the bombshells bursting on the bridge made it rather unhealthy to be around. As I crossed on my hands and knees, Captain Smith, who was crossing by my side at the same time, was struck by a round shot at the same time and completely cut in two.
Stonewall Jackson's arrival was indeed a turning point. As the Union forces pushed forward, they encountered fierce resistance from Jackson's troops. It was during this phase of the battle that Confederate General Bernard B. made a remark that would forever etch Stonewall Jackson's name in history. According to popular accounts, General B. exclaimed, "There stands Jackson like a stone wall." This phrase would immortalize Jackson and earn him the nickname Stonewall. It also boosted the morale of Confederate soldiers who rallied around their steadfast commander. It's fascinating to see how one individual's actions and reputation can have such a profound impact on the course of a battle. But let's delve deeper into how the Battle of Bull Run impacted the overall war. The Battle of Bull Run shattered the illusion of a quick and decisive Union victory. The Union Army, expecting an easy triumph, suffered a humiliating defeat. This outcome had significant repercussions for both the North and the South.
After I crossed, I started up the hill as fast my legs could carry, and passed through Centerville and continued on to Fairfax, where we arrived about 10 o'clock, halting about 15 minutes. Then kept on to Washington, where we arrived about 2 o'clock Monday noon, more dead than alive, having been on our feet 36 hours without a mouthful to eat, and traveled a distance of 60 miles without 20 minutes halt. Samuel English, Corporal, Company D, 2nd Rhode Island Volunteers.
The Union defeat at Bull Run had a sobering effect on the Northern populace. It made it clear that the war would be long and arduous, dampening the initial enthusiasm for a swift resolution. It also prompted the realization that a more robust and organized military strategy was necessary. The battle led to a change in Union leadership. General Irvin McDowell, who had commanded the Union Army at Bull Run, faced heavy criticism for his tactical decisions. He was subsequently replaced by General George B. McClellan, who would go on to play a prominent role in the war. McClellan brought a new approach to the Union Army, focusing on reorganizing and training the troops. This shift in strategy played a crucial role in preparing the Union forces for future battles. The Battle of Bull Run also had international implications. The defeat of the Union Army at Bull Run boosted the Confederacy's international standing, particularly in Europe. It gave hope to foreign nations considering recognition of the Confederacy as an independent nation. The Battle of Bull Run revealed the need for professional medical care for wounded soldiers. The scale of casualties overwhelmed the medical personnel and resources available at the time. This realization prompted improvements in medical care throughout the war, leading to advancements in field hospitals and the establishment of the United States Sanitary Commission. That's a critical point, and one that often gets overshadowed by the military strategies and outcomes of battles. The Battle of Bull Run highlighted the urgent need for better medical support for the soldiers. The subsequent advancements in medical care brought about by the war would have a lasting impact on battlefield medicine. The Battle of Bull Run, a watershed moment in the American Civil War, demonstrated the unpreparedness of both sides and shattered the illusion of a swift Union victory. In this first year of the American Civil War, 1861, as the summer months faded into fall, the tranquil banks of the Potomac River became the stage for a tragic and pivotal conflict, the Battle of Ball's Bluff. Also known as the Battle of Leesburg, this engagement would expose the harsh realities of war and lead to significant military and political repercussions. The Battle of Ball's Bluff was precipitated by a series of misunderstandings and miscommunications. In October 1861, Union forces, eager to demonstrate their resolve after the defeat at Bull Run, sought to engage Confederate troops in Northern Virginia. Leesburg, Virginia, was of strategic importance due to its proximity to Washington. Union General George McClellan, now commanding the Army of the Potomac, ordered reconnaissance missions to ascertain Confederate strength and positions in the area. Brigadier General Charles P. Stone was tasked with these operations. Stone had been appointed by Lieutenant General Winfield Scott when the war broke out as the Inspector General of the District of Columbia. In that capacity, he rallied the limited forces available to ensure the security of the capital. This was especially difficult after rebel sympathizers cut off the city by severing railroad lines leading into Washington after the secessionist attack on troops transiting through Baltimore. Stone's diligence earned him the trust of President Abraham Lincoln despite the fact that Stone was not a political supporter. On October 20, 1861, General Stone received intelligence reports suggesting the Confederates were evacuating Leesburg. Acting on this information, Stone ordered a reconnaissance in force across the Potomac River at Ball's Bluff. 2 Massachusetts regiments made up part of the reconnaissance of the Confederate positions along the upper Potomac. The 20th Infantry Regiment, known as the Harvard Regiment because of its well-educated, socially elite officers, and the 15th Infantry, recruited primarily out of Worcester County, Massachusetts. One 23-year-old officer who would survive the battle, Caspar Crowninshield of Boston, attended Harvard College where his roommate was Robert Gould Shaw. Shaw would later command the 54th Massachusetts, whose story was immortalized in the film Glory. After Crownenshield's graduation from Harvard in 1860, he joined the 20th Regiment of Massachusetts Volunteer Infantry as its captain. He wrote to his mother in the days just after the battle at Ball's Bluff.
Camp Benton, October 22nd, 1861. My dear mother, I sit down in haste to give you an account of the battle which we have just fought. I had been stationed near the river to support a battery, Ricketts, for about a week. On Sunday at 3 p.m., we received orders to march with Captain Bartlett's company up the canal about 3 miles from Edwards Ferry, and await orders. When we arrived there, we met Colonel Lee and Major Revere, who told us that we were to cross the river with 300 men of the 15th Massachusetts Regiment, and surprise a rebel camp which was near the town of Leesburg.
In the early hours of October 21st, Colonel Edward Baker, a close friend of President Abraham Lincoln and a sitting U.S. Senator, led a brigade across the river. However, the intelligence was flawed. Confederate forces under Colonel Nathan Shanks Evans were not retreating, but were positioned to defend Leesburg. The Union troops faced numerous logistical challenges. They were ill-equipped for the river crossing, and their movements were hampered by the dense terrain. This lack of preparation would prove disastrous as they encountered a well-prepared Confederate force. By midday, the Union soldiers were engaged in fierce combat. Outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Baker's men found themselves trapped between the Confederate forces and the steep bluffs of the Potomac River.
Caspar Crowninshield, 20th Massachusetts. We met the rebels with a severe fire, and they fell back, but they continued to fire very rapidly and killed many of our men. They cheered furiously as their reinforcements came up, and their fire became fiercer and fiercer.
The battle reached its tragic climax as the Union forces attempted to retreat. With few boats and under relentless Confederate fire, the retreat turned into a rout. Many soldiers were forced to leap from the cliffs into the river, where they drowned or were shot.
We had to fall back rapidly now, as our center was broken, and had fallen back to the woods on the bank of the river. I was within 6 feet of Colonel Baker when he fell. He got up once, and then fell again, and 2 men carried him off. He had 3 or 4 bullets in him, they say. He behaved with the utmost courage and coolness all through the fight. Caspar Crowninshield, 20th Massachusetts.
Colonel Baker's death in the midst of the battle was a severe blow to Union morale. His fall symbolized the chaos and desperation of the moment. It also had significant political ramifications, as Baker was a personal friend of President Lincoln. Congress was especially upset at the death of a popular former member, and some were quick to find fault with General Stone. By the end of the day, nearly 1,000 Union soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured. The Confederates, though victorious, also suffered significant casualties.
The river was now full of men who were drowning and shouting for help, but there was no help to give them except from God. I never saw such a sight, and God grant I may never see such another. I shall write again soon. Goodbye. Give my love to all and believe that I did my duty. Your affectionate son, Caspar.
Crowninshield ended the war as the colonel of the 2nd Massachusetts Cavalry, with the brevet rank of Brigadier General for gallant and meritorious services during the war. The Battle of Ball's Bluff had profound consequences. In Washington, the defeat intensified scrutiny of military leadership. The disastrous outcome led to the establishment of the Congressional Joint Committee on the Conduct of the War, which would play a pivotal role in overseeing and influencing Union military strategies. The committee's creation was a direct response to the failures seen at Ball's Bluff. It marked the beginning of increased political oversight of military operations, which sometimes caused friction between military commanders and civilian leadership. The battle also underscored the need for better coordination and intelligence in military operations. Lessons learned from the defeat at Ball's Bluff would shape the strategies and decisions in the subsequent years of the war. Today, Ball's Bluff stands as a solemn reminder of the sacrifices made during the Civil War. The lessons learned from this tragic engagement continue to echo through military history, a testament to the complexities and costs of war. As the tumultuous year of 1861 drew to a close, the echoes of cannon fire and the cries of soldiers resonated across a divided nation. The opening salvos at Fort Sumter had ignited the conflict, casting the first shadows of a war that would engulf America. The disastrous Union defeat at Bull Run shattered the illusion of a swift resolution, revealing the war's harsh reality and the depths of the nation's divisions. The grim setback at Bluff underscored the urgency and desperation that would characterize the long struggle ahead. These major battles of 1861 were more than mere military engagements. They were a crucible in which the resilience and determination of a nation were tested. From the harrowing surrender at Fort Sumter to the chaotic retreat at Bull Run and the tragic losses at Bluff, each encounter shaped the evolving strategies and hardened the resolve of both Union and Confederate forces. As we reflect on these early clashes, we see the genesis of a war that would redefine the United States, forging a path through blood and sacrifice toward a future of unity and freedom. The battles of 1861, including those at Aquia Creek, Big Bethel, Ivy Mountain, and others, marked only the beginning of this arduous journey, setting the stage for a conflict that would forever alter the course of American history.